So, friends, hard to believe though this may be, House Republicans just delivered Donald Trump another defeat. Yes, really. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. Well, friends, today I am encouraged. Why am I encouraged? Well, the federal government remains open and funded in part because House Republicans just told Donald Trump, hell no. Let's start with the new reporting. This from Politico. Headline, Trump's wake-up call, Republicans are willing to defy him. That article begins, Donald Trump is getting a rude awakening that his grip on the GOP isn't absolute. Over the past 48 hours, 38 House Republicans rejected the stopgap spending bill that the president-elect publicly threw his weight behind after tanking Speaker Mike Johnson's original proposal to keep the federal government running past Friday. Their defiance came even as Trump and his allies threatened to field primary challenges against GOP members who didn't fall in line. Then, on Friday night and early Saturday morning, the House and Senate passed a different version of the spending plan, one that didn't include Trump's demand to extend or end the debt limit. It's the latest example of Trump confronting the limits of his power, especially over his own party. Senate Republicans already dealt Trump a massive blow when a handful of them made clear they wouldn't support Trump's first choice for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz, leading him to withdraw. And that was after they chose John Thune over Rick Scott for Senate GOP leader against the wishes of Trump's allies. Taken together, rank-and-file Hill Republicans' early rebuffs of Trump show the party is far from total lockstep with the president-elect. And friends, there's another reason I feel encouraged today. And it's because I just read a new piece by someone I consider a friend, Representative Eric Swalwell. You know, when I retired from the Department of Justice and I had this idea about how we need to give some legal rights to families who had lost a loved one to violent crime and whose loved one's murder investigation had grown cold. They needed some legal statutory rights to make sure the case gets a second look and gets reworked after it has grown cold. And Representative Swalwell heard me out. He let me work with his legislative team. And in August of 2022, President Biden signed into law the Homicide Victims' Families' Rights Act. And we're now in the process of taking that federal legislation and trying to push it out to the states where it's really needed, because we have more than 300,000 unsolved murders in the United States of America, and that is unacceptable. So I had the great fortune to work with Representative Swalwell and his legislative team to make that law a reality. Representative Swalwell was good enough to include me in something he called the Justice League. We got to make a presentation together with him. And he has also been extremely supportive of our Justice Matters and Team Justice efforts, even attending our annual Team Justice gathering in Washington, D.C., and speaking to and buoying the crowd. And I just read a brand new piece by Representative Swalwell about how the congressional Republicans can serve as a bulwark against a self-described, aspiring, day one dictator, Donald Trump. And I want to take a few minutes on this Saturday, I hope you'll bear with me, to read the entire piece. It's not that long, but as far as I'm concerned, every word of it is valuable and important, because we are going to need bulwarks against Donald Trump's worst instincts. So, with that caveat, here is the brand new piece by Representative Eric Swalwell. Headline: I've faced Trump's crusade to punish his enemies. Congress can still stop him. It will take a courageous Congress to stop Donald Trump's most corrupt instincts. Trump is not letting those instincts go. The presidential election cycle wasn't just about re-election. It was about avoiding justice, and more importantly for him, punishing those who oppose him. Many times this year, he has threatened his perceived opponents and pressured even members of his own political party. Anyone who stands in his way is vulnerable. We should also assume that since he was last president, he's honed his ability to lash out against his opponents. We now know that in his first administration, he weaponized his Department of Justice. The department recently released its Inspector General's report detailing the misuse of government jurisdiction in 2017 in obtaining the phone and email records of his two most vocal and effective critics, myself, that would be Representative Swalwell, and former Representative Adam Schiff, now a U.S. Senator. And Trump's first term had much more qualified individuals than the people he wants to appoint to his new administration. One can only imagine what these out for blood, eager to please the boss class of appointees will do on behalf of their leader. Predicting that the next Trump administration will investigate and prosecute Trump's enemies is not an act of conjecture, it's an act of reading. Like reading FBI Director appointee Kash Patel's book, in which he lists his enemies of the state. While the list only includes current and former executive branch officials and is not exhaustive, he lists me, Representative Swalwell, and Schiff first among other corrupt actors of the First Order, along with the entire news media. If confirmed as FBI director, Patel will carry out Trump's wishes to prosecute and imprison members of the House Select Committee on the January 6th attack. These acts of intimidation and fear-mongering in the MAGA tent aren't new, but they carry significant weight now that Trump is the president-elect. Trump is laying the groundwork for an unleashed administration, and it doesn't help that the Supreme Court essentially gave Trump the green light to do almost anything he wants with absolute immunity. Who can America turn to for checks and balances to hold up the rule of law? What will a completely unchecked, unleashed, and guardrail-free Trump do to his dissenters? How will Trump be successfully fenced in? The answer is Congress. Now, that may be laughable to some, but there is recent proof of concept that a Republican Congress can be up for the job. Just ask Matt Gaetz, Trump's choice for Attorney General, or rather, his former choice, before Gaetz withdrew after failing to win over enough GOP senators. I've learned, meaning Representative Swalwell has learned, in the many years of taking on Trump, that if you're counting on a single Republican congressman or senator to stop him, forget it. They'll shrink. He'll overpower them. They'll fear they will become public enemy number one among conservatives, and their lives will be turned upside down with threats to their safety and country club memberships. But if they can take a silent, collective action, they can be effective. No one can point to a specific single senator who blocked the Gaetz nomination. That's not an accident. By banding together, a half dozen senators said, "Hell no," and made Gaetz' path impossible. Do they have it in them to do it again and again and again until the message is received by Trump that they will not rubber stamp America's path to a dictatorship? My hope, meaning Representative Swalwell's hope, is that when it comes to Patel and other like-minded Trump picks, the Senate gets this right. I am admittedly biased. Not only did Trump's DOJ unlawfully go through my communication records, but this past year alone, his and MAGA's attacks against me brought dozens of credible law enforcement investigations into death threats against me. People are in jail for wanting to kill me and my kids. I spent $315,000 this past Congress on personal security to protect myself and my family. I know the consequences of dissent. What happened to me should not happen to anyone else. But even had I not had those experiences, Trump's crusade to crucify his enemies is unjustifiable. Thankfully, we are not helpless against Trump's threats to be a dictator on day one. Congress is still the last best check to stop Kash Patel from carrying out a lawful revenge tour. The power to halt Trump's radical hitmen is in our hands. Through collective action and bipartisanship, we can ensure that the rule of law stays in balance. The direction that America takes is completely dependent on how Congress responds. Now, friends, I'm a legal analyst. I'm not a political analyst. I don't even try to play one on TV, but I have been saying for weeks that Republicans in Congress, in the House, in the Senate, can and must act as a bulwark against Donald Trump's worst instincts, his corruption, his abuse, his lawlessness, his determination to punish his perceived enemies by misusing the power of government. So I was so heartened when I read what Representative Swalwell wrote, because it is exactly how I feel. And now we have not only an example, we have a track record of Congress, both the Senate and the House, standing up to Donald Trump and saying, hell no. You know, just maybe, the Republicans care more about the health and the viability of our democracy and the safety and the well-being of the American people, and yes, the rule of law and even justice. Because justice matters. Friends, points of light. We're going to look for the encouragement where we can find it. We're going to acknowledge the Trump-induced darkness where it exists, and we're going to keep fighting. Please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.